meeting, and then yeah, he will see
Okay.
obviously what you offer. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate it. So maybe just to recap, just with regards to the Namibian base, just keep let's just keep a mind on that, because as I said, we've done a lot of research in Namibia due to major players that we've done work with in the industry. So we definitely can save you guys a lot of cost and help you do not only to mitigate risk, but also to grow a lot of business in your Namibian book as well. And it will, I mean, compared to having to do a report for every single time, and those reports cost at least 2,000 Rand. So let's just not neglect your Namibian base as well. Okay, great. So Prince, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just share an agenda. I think that's always good, just to give you an understanding of what we discussed last. And just we have an understanding what to expect in this demonstration. So I'm just going to share my screen. Great, you can see my screen over there.
Yep, I can.
Okay, fantastic. So let's maybe just go through the agenda. So we're going to do just a quick summary of your pain points that we discussed in our last meeting. I think it's always important for us to kick off with that because, ultimately, we want TradeShield to have a good impact and an immediate impact in your world. And we obviously want to impact immediately the pain points. A TradeShield, like any other technology, is quite diverse. It can do a lot of things. But most importantly, we need to have an immediate impact. So that's why we're just going to summarize the pain points and make sure that whatever we're presenting now is aligned with your most immediate concerns, if that makes sense. Then we're going to just briefly chat about how TradeShield is going to serve as a solution. Then we're going to go into the TradeShield demo. So we're going to talk about the onboarding process for 10 minutes. How would you onboard a new client in your world? How would you review limits in your world? Part of the reviewing of limits is also going to lend us to talk about, in this last point, how we actually proactively manage the debtors book. Because, proactive management is not just avoiding risk events, but also how do we grow our book and not neglect our good clients and our good payers. And we also don't want our competitors to be utilizing any possibility of an increased limit to be selling to your clients. So get your clients before your competitors do, so you can close that gap. And then how do we, just from an adverse findings, how do we keep you ahead of the game? How do we ensure that at least 6 months in advance you are notified of anything potentially adverse that could happen to any of your clients on your books? So all in all, I mean, we're looking at about 35 minutes, but it will take longer because there's going to be questions. We're going to stop, so please stop me if you have any questions. The last part is maybe just to give some time just for some questions that we might have. And then important is just to discuss the next steps. I think it's important just to explain how easy it is to roll this out and what the next steps are. Are you happy with that agenda?
Happiness.
Okay, great. Fantastic. So let's go through the pain points. So I think, we mentioned in our discovery meeting, you've got a hell of a lot of new applications that you process every single month. And I think you mentioned sometimes it can be up to 30 applications, which is...
on average, it's about 30. And in terms of the forward view, we're expecting that number to increase now going forward.
Well, look, that's fantastic news for your business. Well done. I think you're in a great position because your business has reached obviously a great maturity phase where you're getting an application a day. The question is, how do we obviously streamline that process? How do we make it faster without being negligent? I think is important in your world. So how do we make profitable decisions when onboarding clients and make those decisions fast? Because we don't want to potentially lose a deal. We don't want to frustrate a client, but it's not only just losing a deal, it's also the potential of starting to trade immediately with that client. So we unpack that the application process is manual. It's that obviously talks to it speaks for itself. It's a long turnaround time. The data is messy. It's complicated because you mentioned, you'd like to do credit checks, you like to look at reference letters. The problem with all this information is that it's coming by piecemeal. It's coming from a whole bunch of directions. You have to make sense of it. Also, the client sometimes takes long to give that to you. So the data is messy, it's complicated. It doesn't really provide simple information that everyone can understand and make a quick, profitable decision. Does that resonate in your world? Just so I understand that. Okay, great. Fantastic. I think we'll just maybe explore some more of those pain points in the next slide. So you mentioned typically what we like to look at to make a decision, which first of all, from an ITC background check, the problem with an ITC background is that it's backwards looking. It's telling us information that's previously happened, but it's not really giving us a predictive view of the client and how they're going to behave. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The other problem with an ITC background check is that it doesn't talk towards your needs. So, for example, if your terms are a certain amount of days and you're looking at a minimum facility size of 100,000 Rand, it doesn't really talk to the fact of how likely is this client going to pay you within your terms. And this is also the problem that we mentioned that, this is why we like to look at bank codes and like to do bank statement analysis, we like to look at financials and historical sales performance. Also in terms of historic aging of that client. But once again, first of all, bank statements takes a long time to analyze. I'm sure you agree. Often we have to skim through it and we have to just make a quick decision. Bank codes are very vague. They don't really tell you anything. Often they just advise you on the liquidity of the account, but they don't tell you how likely this client is going to pay within your terms. Financials is very painstakingly exhausting to go through, and often it takes a client a long time to send those through to us, and they get neglected in the application process, so we have to go back. So this is a problem, and the traditional bureaus are happy just to give you a bank code, but it doesn't really mean anything anymore because everyone's a code C. So now we ask for trade reference letters, but you and I chatted last time, they are not really reliable because they're very biased. I mean, the person's sending you the supplies that they pay well, but they're not really giving you a view of exactly. And lastly, this is a long turnaround time. I mean, to get all of this information streamlined just takes a long time. It aggravates the whole process, and we're losing out on potential sales, or alternatively, we're pressured by our sales team to make decisions without information at hand. So we're very true. Yeah. So it sounds like this resonates in your world, hey? This is what's making you lose your hair every single day.
Definitely, man. Sure. It's a nightmare.
I'm sorry to hear that, but the good news is that we're gonna change that. Okay. So what's the solution? So I'll give you some optimism in the future. So don't give up yet. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Okay. It's a simple solution. We need to have an application process, including the amount of time that it takes the client to complete an application form, including the amount of time we'll take Inoxico to analyze your bank statements. So we'll analyze them for you and the financials, a total of 1 hour. Okay. Does that sound like a good solution?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Great. We're going to do this by having a digital application. We're going to take your application form and we're going to digitalize it. When we talk about digitalization, we're not just talking about a digital form. We're also talking about the digital application form exists and talks to a digital ecosystem. So it syncs with CIPC, and you'll see why that streamlines the entire process for you. We're going to give you live data. at your fingertips that is easy to understand. And live data is going to be live data, including your live age analysis, but also we're going to align external data from other suppliers pertaining to the same data that you have in your books. We're going to align that and give you an aggregated view. So in other words, you never have to ask the client for a bank reference letter because we're giving it to you every single day. And you never have to ask the client for a supplier, a trade reference letter, because we're giving that to you every single day at your fingertips, and we're giving you an honest one. Okay. We're going to give you a simple view of your debtors book that's going to be segmented in risk profiles. So that way you can proactively improve cash flow and you can improve your DSOs. So in other words, we're going to help you make fast and profitable decisions. And that's what TradeShield is. Does that sound like a good solution fit?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Any questions so far?
I think it's been straight to the point, so so far I'm understanding.
Okay, great stuff. This, just by the way, this isn't a monologue, so if you just interrupt me, feel free to ask questions, etc. If you have anything that you want to ask. Okay.
So obviously with the bank statement analysis, when you do that, I'm assuming